Hi everyone, welcome back to another video to help you with developing the rest of essay number 1. So one of the things that we are looking at here is a sample of how you might have broken down one of your topics. So I'm going to be using a student essay, and he has offered it up for us so that we can analyze what we can do, some of the strengths and some of the areas that we can change based off of what is needed for essay number 1. So in this topic, he's looking at the mask mandate, and so one of the observations or reasons why one might look at mandating masks, of course, because it applies to pretty much everyone in the United States and globally. But also, one of the observations made is the politicization of wearing masks. Now, keep in mind that if you are covering this topic, there could be other perspectives you want to examine, you know, the legalities of it, maybe the civil rights component, perhaps maybe from a business perspective. So it really just depends. But in this aspect, because he's looking at politics, then it would seem very logical to look at the perspectives from those who are conservative and liberal perspectives, Republican and Democrat, depending on how you want to label it or how perhaps maybe the people want to be labeled. So that's something that you're going to have to look at. So we're slowly breaking this down, as I indicated in the first video. So now, naturally, you're at a stage where you probably have gathered your quotes. So this particular student decided to use quotes from interviews at a rally, which is great. We want, again, making sure that the interview comes directly from the speaker themselves, even though it's being reported in other areas. That's okay, as long as we have the primary source, first-person perspective. So we might break it down in this way, right? So we have the two perspectives, conservative and liberal, and I just copied just a few of these here just for the sake of example, but we have the person's name, and you can use the full name if they are in an interview and they, of course, agreed to publicizing their name. If you are getting perspectives that are public, that's okay. You can use their name. However, if there is a person that does not want to use their name or wishes to remain anonymous, then you can make up a name for them, or simply use phrases like the first person, perspective, or one person who belongs to the party, or something like that. So here we have our direct quotations that fall underneath it. And again, as I said, it's best to organize yourself in this way so that when it's time to actually develop the body paragraphs, then it becomes an easy transfer process. Okay, so we have all that here. The next step would, of course, be before we begin to write, we need to analyze what's actually being said. So here for this person, we have, this is not a dictatorship. This is a republic. We have a right to be who we are and take whatever risks we so desire. I could cross the street and get hit by a bus tomorrow. Why do I have to wear a mask when I know without a doubt is not helping? So one of the things that you'll want to do underneath each one of these, if this is your process, is to sort of capture the themes or patterns. So if you had to, which you do, interpret what this person is saying, remember, you are not arguing against or for. What we're doing is interpretation. And that is to say, what do you think this person means based off the key concepts and terms that they've used? So we have a couple of key terms here. Of course, this person is seeing the mask mandate as a dictatorship. That's one way to do it. And then, of course, another perception being this is how they see what country they live in. Next, we have a right. So we're talking about civil rights here, or rights as people who live in this country. And so what they're saying is we have a right to take risks, whatever we so desire. So one of the things that I think about, of course, is the notion of choice. So I might actually write that here. So we have this idea of the perception of masks, mandates as control or dictatorship. This is going to be important because you're going to need these terms when you actually write your body paragraph and develop your topic sentences. So if you haven't watched the body paragraph video, it's going to be important to do that so you understand what it is that I'm addressing and what I'm talking about when I mean topic sentence. So please be sure to watch that before developing this essay. And the next is, of course, we have the rights. So we talk about rights as people who live in the United States, And then, of course, this notion of choice, right? So I think of, my body, my choice concept. And okay. And then the next one we have, I could cross the street and get hit by a bus tomorrow. So this is an example of this idea of taking risks. So that really is just solidifying that concept. And the next, why do I have to wear a mask when I know without a doubt is not helping? So this perception of masks are not working or are not, helpful. Okay. And so that's what we have from here. You don't want to, again, you have to use what's in front of you. So use the terms, use the words, key concepts, things like that to decipher how you're going to interpret that. So you would do the same for the rest of these, right? So here you have, I feel like that's my freedom as an American. If I catch COVID, that's the consequence of my actions. I'm willing to take the risk. So what we're noticing is additional patterns, right? So we have this idea of my freedoms to not wear a mask, and of course identifying as this is American perception. Consequences of my actions, so again putting the responsibility on the choice, and then taking risks, right? So again, these sound very familiar to the other person. While they didn't say dictatorship, they did talk about this notion of freedom and choice, of course, and then that they take responsibility in their own actions, right? And then that includes taking risks. So one of the things then from here, and we'll just stop right here for a moment with these two examples, is you now know that there is a connection and some patterns that are overlapping. And then this is going to be important, right? When you begin to develop your body paragraph. So for the sake of this example, I'm going to begin developing my body paragraph. And I know that using the Texas format, and again, if you don't know what I'm referencing and when it comes to Texas format, be sure to watch the body paragraph. But under the Texas format, I do need a topic sentence, right? Because I am, according to the outline, required to present perspectives on whatever those perspectives are. So in this case, I know I'm looking at conservative party perspectives. So everything that I'm highlighting here is probably going to find its way into the body paragraph, right? So I might say something like, for some conservatives, the mask mandate is a freedom issue. Okay, so for me, I feel like it's safe for me to say something like this. And of course, I'm writing this on the fly. I might go back and revise and just extend that idea out a little bit more. But according to body paragraph development, I have my topic sentence, but now I need to explain, right? So what do I mean by conservatives feel like or perceive mask mandates as a freedom issue? Well, here I might use some of the concepts that I interpreted, right? So they feel, for them, as Americans, they perceive that they should have a right to choose what happens to their body without government control. Okay. Now, if I want to clarify what I mean by that further, I can. And for, again, some of them we're talking about risk taking or whatever the case might be. But here, I am now preparing my reader for these quotes, right? And so the quotes won't be a surprise. We talk about how we don't want to do drop quotations. We need to contextualize them. So in this instance, we're going to begin to now present our evidence. And of course, this becomes our evidence here naturally. So I'm going to start for one Conservative Party member. She believes that the mask mandate is a form of dictatorship. For instance, For example, during one indoor Trump rally that took place in Nevada, McGuigan stated, now I'm using the word stated here for a moment until I can really grasp what it is. Now she's arguing something, so we might want to use something a little bit stronger than stated. So we can go ahead and say argues or contends. Look up the verbs, to use Word Hippo to do that. But by presenting a key verb here, it gives us a sense of what to expect as far as the tone of her quote. Now, you also notice that I use a last name. You can use first and last name or last name only, but typically we'll use the last name. And then we begin the quote here. This is not a dictatorship. This is a republic. We have a right to be who we are and take whatever risks we so desire. Now, as I'm writing this here, I'm starting to notice that these two might have two different emphasis, okay? So what I'm actually going to do is take this part out and reserve it for when I talk about the notion of risks later. So I'm going to end this here. Okay, and of course, I'm going to quote it. And right now, I'm just going to put the CNN in place, knowing that I'll have to come back and quote it appropriately, but for the sake of time. So now I need to explain this and, again, provide my interpretation. You are not to argue, as I said before, with this. You know, you're not going to say this person's wrong. You're just simply going to say, for her, the idea of a government requiring people to wear masks is a form of control in a society that is built on freedom. Now, I can say that because she uses these terms, dictatorship versus republic and things like that. And then I want to add another conservative interviewee echoes her statement, and Kyle Hackett And again, of course, you'll want to determine how you're going to want to interpret how he's stating this. So he's really emphasizing the notion of freedom as being more important than, of course, wearing a mask or something of that nature. Now, again, we have to reserve our commentary for that, no matter how you feel about this. And so now that I have this element here, I kind of want to wrap up. So if I had to synthesize all of this, I could end that here and start a new paragraph. So I would just say, right? And I'm not done with our perspectives yet, but I do want to start a new paragraph for clarity purposes. And so I would do the same in relation to the notion of taking risks, right? The whole my body, my choice concept. So you can continue on. And in this aspect, so here we have another ways conservative perspective stress that mandating a mask forces people to, or say something along the lines of, responsibility and take risks and things like that. or not living their life, or whatever the case might be. And then, of course, you're going to repeat the same concept, explain what you mean by that, and then introduce the quotes. In this instance, now we would be using these quotes about taking risks. So this would be found in the second paragraph, and I would use this quote in the second paragraph as well. And we can see that they both match the concept of taking risks and being able to live in the now, and those types of choices. Whereas these quotes here were in reference to naturally the perception of freedom, dictatorship, things of that nature. So once you have that, you're still presenting the conservative sides. Now, when you're ready, you will apply the same principle to the liberal perspective. So ideally, that's what the student would do there. Okay. And so you're going to repeat this through this process. Now, this is all about the body paragraphs, of course. And now we have to look to the intro and the conclusion element. Okay. So with the introduction, we want to, again, of course, stress the importance of why we're having this conversation, the thesis statement, and so forth. So be sure to watch that video. And then, of course, the third video in the segment would be the analysis conclusion element of that. But before we close this out, I just want to give an example of the student paper. And so this is the student's paper, and I wanted to highlight some of the elements of why this is important. So this is how he incorporated the perspectives here. And so the start of the paragraph, we have, how did mass become a sign of your political party? And so one of the things that I mentioned to the student is we have to make sure that the topic sentences match. So very similar to what I said before, we have to use those key ideas. By presenting a question here, we don't really know what the paragraph is going to entail. It sounds more of like an argumentative paper, as I indicated. So we want to make sure that we're going to present and contextualize these quotations. And so here he says, how did mass become a sign of a political party? But then immediately jumps into the quotes, and we're not really quite sure as readers what those quotes entail, or why those were captured, or what they were necessary for. Okay. And finally, here we have something that I addressed him as well, which is Philomena is clearly misinformed when it comes to the efficacy of masks. So again, we want to avoid this where we're arguing with the person. Now, you might do this in an argumentative paper, but as I want to stress, this is not an argumentative piece. While there may be some elements of argument in the conclusion, in the body paragraphs, we want to avoid saying things like that. So we want to focus our attention more on presenting it in these ways where it's neutral and just reporting out on the interpretations of some of these quotes. But we cannot get to this body paragraph without the process of analysis here of what we're actually really looking at. We cannot just throw the quotations in there and just hope they all make sense. It all ties into how we are going to frame the body paragraph. Okay. So as I said before, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. And then be sure to watch the specific video for intro for essay 1, and then be sure to watch the video for the analysis one as well.